Hi everybody, Nick Blazer here with another position analysis video. And this one is one that I shared a clip with earlier this week from the RAC London Open. It's a match where Sebastian Wilkinson was playing the white checkers on bottom, Oliver Squire playing the black checkers on top. And I thought it was a really exciting sequence. So I wanted to go over that. It is a score cube situation where, not something that I cover in my book at all. It's the kind where I kind of just am happy to acknowledge that sometimes knowing the match equity is like essential to figuring these out, especially in these endgame bear-offs. And it just takes a ton of memorization and calculation to get it. But somehow, both these players got this cube action right over the board. And I'm kind of teasing you with this one because the position on the board is maybe relatively simple. I think, regardless of the score, we can see that white is going to win with any set twos or better. So just a little bit less than 1/6 of the time. And then also, even when they don't do that, black is a favorite to miss. So then we'll also win on those. So given that black's going to be an underdog, we're not really expecting any at least at normal scores, value of the cube coming back or anything like that. This is everything I said in commentary too, so you can check out that cube or that clip. But yeah, given all those things, I think it's reasonably easy to expect, that we're a favorite. It's a last roll scenario. The exact numbers don't matter so much, as long as if we had a 5-2 to get off and our opponent had the opposite, just was always getting off there, or a small favorite, so I expect to send the cube. I did not check that at the score. I should do that actually real quick. I can find out on a separate XG real quick and confirm if that would be the case or not. But let's see here. Yeah, I'm going to do some research on here. So at the score, because of that, at the score, it's actually a slight no double. You actually need to be a little bit bigger favorite. We'll look at all these cube information things. Actually, I can figure it out from there. But so no big surprises here. I was thinking because there's no overage on the cube, we're not so worried about recubes and things like that as a result. And so it should be easy to just treat this like money and send it. And so that happened. Seb rolls 3-2 and takes 2 checkers off. And then it turns out Oliver has a cube action consideration here. And this shocked the heck out of me. That now black, as an underdog, as a under 40% to win, should send this cube back, even though white's getting the full value out of all 8 points, same as black. So why would this act so different? And I spoke with Oliver a little bit after the fact, and he explained to me the normal way to figure this out is to know the match equity tables, do some risk over risk plus gain calculations to figure out exactly what your doubling point and your take points are, and figure out if you have that compared to your winning chances. And then and calculating the winning chances isn't so bad here. With some practice with dice math, you can learn that 1/36 is around 2.7 or 2.8% winning chances or something like this. You can count the number of rolls that get off here, which I think I did on commentary too. Looks like 3-5, 3-6, 4-5, 4-6, and 5-6 for 10 rolls. And then double threes or better is another 14 rolls. So we're 18 rolls is half. So we're 4 rolls short of half the numbers, which should be whatever a little bit. That 4, I can't do 4 times 2.7 in my head. It's too hard. This is why I don't try to do this over the board. But about 11% is probably what you'd come up with, and think around 39% then. So that's all doable. But then to take this and think, well, I'm clearly an underdog. Should I send it here? Well, let's look at some of the numbers, how you figure that out. We'll talk about that standard way first. And in XG, I'm going to go to the cube information under the Analyze tab and share that real quick and show you that you can always just go look this up. And we can see for black, the double point, you got to be careful reading this because the dead cube number is the important one here. And what we can see if I close it real quick, you can consider this a dead cube because white is never getting the value of sending a 16 cube back, which admittedly is never worth very much. But they're always just, the game's over when black misses. So that's what a dead cube means, is that there isn't future where the cube will be of value to our opponent. And that's the case here. And so we can just use this number and find out that XG is calculated 34.7% is where we should double. And we can look at the match equity to understand how Oliver got to that number too, which if we look at this table here, this is the Neil Kazaros match equity table. You go to analyze match equity table in XG to get to this. And it's got a lot of the relevant numbers highlighted for us here too. So what we're trying to figure out is in terms of these scores, the formula is called risk divided by risk plus gain. And so the risk element for Oliver is that he's 13 away. And if he loses this game on a 4 cube, he'll go to 13 away, 5 away. And your match equity from there, this table tells us, is 14%. That's your chances of winning the match in that eventuality. If we instead set the cube to 8 and we lose, then we go to 13 away, 1 away Crawford, which is only 2% match winning chances. So that's a 12% difference. So by sending the cube, we're risking 12% match equity, right? And if you look on the other side, well, when we win this game on a 4 cube, we go to even. 9 away should be obvious is 50%. Not too hard. But if we win on an 8 cube, then we go to 5 away. And so 5 away, 9 away, leading is now 72.5% for about 22.5% gain. And so when we do the division, it's going to be 12 risk over risk plus gain. 12 plus 22.5 is 34.5. So if you divide 12 by 34.5, you can bring your calculators out there and do that right now. You'll see it comes up with that 34.7 number that XG used. And that's how you know if you have access to all this information, which somehow he has to have memorized basically out to this 13. He told me he's memorized out to the 11, which is crazy enough. Plenty crazy for me. But he can kind of extrapolate from there and have pretty good guesses of what the 13 numbers are based on what he knows about the 11 numbers. So still like, a little bit of guess and test. But that is so, I spent a lot of time trying to thinking this was the way to get better at matches and trying to memorize tables. And I think I remember all the 5 away ones, but I probably get those wrong occasionally. I don't know for sure. And then once we get out to 7 away, there's definitely ones in there that are a little bit stranger that I can't remember. There's some interesting symmetries that can help you. But I mean, long story short, after you memorize all that, if you remember it, then you have to just do the calculation that I shared with you over the board in your head. and you better not make any slip ups on that, right? You better get to the 12 divided by 34.5, have a good idea of, that's roughly 34.7. I don't know. It's crazy. Some players do this. But I think for myself, what I also found was that it's pretty error prone for me to be doing this kind of calculation over the board. And so I'm not sure I'm actually gaining that much by even trying to do it, If I might come up with the wrong answer and make a wrong decision as a result, maybe going by feel is better. But anyways, I wondered to myself if there's more of a natural, intuitive way to understand this. And of course, we know I shared in my book, some Recube values. We can expect those at asymmetric scores when there's a match end involved. To go quite a bit, up to 25% is pretty normal on a 2 to 4 cube. And then, as high as 40% at some at very special scores, 3 away, 4 away, when you recube to 4, the take point for the leader is going to be 40% now because they can drop to that 3 away, 2 away score, which we could look up in this table here if we wanted. But yeah, so there's some rules 25 and higher is pretty easy to use. But again, what I'm leaning on is near match end for all those. And I know when I get farther out, usually the recube is probably between 21 and 25. I use that number quite a bit. But here, of course, these are all take point things. And that doesn't tell you a whole lot about when the doubling window opens, which I also just don't tend to think about almost at all. I mean, with a number 40%, if I'm at 4 away, 3 away, I know that if it's an even game, then I better send it because I'm close to losing my market. And I guess if I got to a last roll position, I wouldn't know exactly when to send it. And that's an okay omission to me because it doesn't come up very often. I said in my book, I've never seen it in all match play. Now this year, I saw the John Barnes cube in Cyprus that I think I did a video on too. And now this one. So these are pretty crazy and require intricate knowledge. But anyway, what I wanted to give was some sort of rule of thumb to how you might find this. And what's really important to note on this too is that it's entirely specific to this score and an 8 cube specifically. If Oliver held a 2 cube and was given the option to send it to a 4 cube, the math doesn't come out to be enough to send it as an underdog. If he held an 8 cube and was offered to send it to 16, well, then obviously we're getting 7 points of overage, and it seems like we're usually going to send that. That's probably pretty intuitive to figure out. So how do we know when the 8 is going to give us to Crawford that it's worth going for the swing of being a favorite in the match? And the pattern that I can see here is that as we look at the points between this 5-away, 13-away, and 1-away 13 Crawford, the first one here is worth about 4%. Then we drop about 3%. And then the next one's worth kind of 3-ish% again, and then a little less than 2%. So we can see there seems to be some effect is like when in a 13-point match, each of the points, and as we get further and further away, seems to be worth a little bit less, as we get closer to the end of the match. So maybe we could use that knowledge to know, okay, the difference between 5-away 13-away and 1-away 13-away is less than earlier in the match. Then we can also look over here and see that in this 9-away versus 9-away 5-away, that the numbers are worth about 5.5, then we're another 5, then we're another 6, then we're close to another 6. So I think if you know Neil's numbers, I think you know that they jump around that 5 to 6 territory. And maybe another way, if these are 5 to 6 each and these are 4 to 2, well, then we can start to guess, okay, maybe I can send this as an underdog. But another way maybe to think about it that I think Julian was trying to explain on the stream too, is that all the points that Seb is earning by going from 13-away 5-away to 13-away 1-away are in a 13-point match. And if you want to think about dividing the points out in a 13-point match, well, each one of those points should be worth less match equity than each point in a shorter match, right? So that kind of seem logical. We see this happening in this. If we look at 9-away 9-away, we can think about this like a 9-point match and see that each point along the way in this 9-point match is probably going to be worth a bigger percentage of the match entirely than it would be in a 13-point match. If we looked at 13-away 13-away and moving up one game, yeah, it's like 13 to 12 is 4.5%, but this first point in a 9-point match is 5.5%. And that's because this is a longer match, of course, right? You have more chances to come back where you have less. You're closer to the end. It's all proximity to the end. So if you can somehow come up with like what I'm comparing are points in a 13-point match for Seb to points in a 9-point match for Oliver, then maybe you can find this because the points are clearly more valuable to Oliver. The 9-point matches points are. So maybe that's an intuitive way that you can get to this sort of scenario and remember it. I hope you remember everything we talked about here. If you ever encounter this over the board, I think like the most natural thing for even the strongest players will be to just look at this, see we're an underdog, roll, and move on. But if you can remember that some weird things are going on with the 4 cube and everything like that, 4 to 8 and all this stuff, then maybe you have a chance of finding this with an intuitive approach as well, instead of having to do all that math over the board. This is a pretty technical one, but wow, I was really impressed with Oliver's play to stop and do this. Anyone that can do that over the board. So I thought that was really cool stuff. Oliver Squire, if you don't know him, younger player from the UK and certainly going to be a grandmaster sooner than later. And you'll be hearing more from him. If you look at their summary from this match too, I mean, outside of like Oliver got down to 4 seconds on the clock and made 1 blunder in the last game. And otherwise, both of them played basically a clean match. So this is one to go catch. It's on the day one live stream for sure, if you want to go watch the whole thing back. But thank you. This has been a super exciting position to go over for me. I hope you guys learned something from it. Hopefully you're not just overwhelmed with numbers right now. and yeah, stay tuned. Please do subscribe to the channel if you like this stuff, like these videos. And I'll be back. Hopefully you're watching the Loot Rocky commentary today too. That'll be coming out. And yeah, always watch my channel for the old streams too. Those are all right here. I'll be back with more soon, everybody. Bye now.